Hello, I'm Brandis Friedman. I am the Alexandra and John Nichols Chief Correspondent and Anchor of WTTW's Chicago Tonight. And I'm thrilled to join you all again for the second year to MC this event. A few housekeeping notes before we begin. If you have not already entered the giveaway donated by Radisson Blu, I encourage you to take a moment during lunch to drop your business card. Okay, so this thing says that there's a basket that's going to be passed around during lunch. I think that's an option. Another option is the gift bag on the table to my right. There are some lovely flowers and awards. Don't steal the awards. You can steal the flowers. But you may also drop your business card in that gift bag or the basket that is going to be passed around during lunch. And I promise they will be put together so everybody's name gets drawn from the pie. I will be announcing the winner at the end of today's program. So then a quick overview of our afternoon together. If you have not begun already, please enjoy your salad. A plated lunch will be served shortly following some welcome remarks. After lunch, we will honor our award recipients, Jim Reynolds and Hyatt, and we will hear from both Jim and Hyatt President and CEO Mark Hoplamazian. That'll be in a fireside chat. Okay, logistics are covered. We're so glad that you have all joined us for the Civic Federation's 2025 Annual Civic Awards as we honor the contributions of an extraordinary leader and an outstanding organization. Today's theme, Investing in Tomorrow. It's in homage to our honorees' shared commitment to Chicago's future and the youth who will help shape it. Jim Reynolds, through his leadership at Loop Capital and his many civic and philanthropic endeavors, has opened doors for Chicago's young people, providing mentorship, education, and pathways to leadership. Similarly, Hyatt Hotels Corporation, under the leadership of Mark Hoplamazian, has made workforce development a core part of its mission through its Rise High program and partnerships with organizations like Skills for Chicagoland's Future. Their work embodies the civic leadership that the Civic Federation promotes, the Federation's guiding vision to empower residents and government officials alike with independent, nonpartisan, fact-based research. Likewise, strengthens our city for the future. And as we look ahead to Chicago's bicentennial in 2037, leaders like Jim and Hyatt will help ensure a strong foundation for the next century. I'm also proud, of course, to contribute to these conversations each day through my work on Chicago Tonight, where we seek to inform and engage the public in issues that shape our region. And some of this we will get into in our fireside chat conversation with Jim and Mark, some of the work that we do that kind of overlaps. Obviously, at Chicago Tonight, we call on the Civic Federation quite a bit for their analysis and their research because we share that in common, the need for fact-based and independent information. And to all of you, thank you all for being here today. And thank you for your own investment in Chicago's governments, business, and civic life, and your commitment to making this region a vibrant, equitable place to live and work. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce you to the man who actually needs no introduction in this room, Civic Federation President Joe Ferguson.
Wow, it actually got quiet. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Civic Federation's 2025 Annual Civic Awards. It's humbling to see so many familiar faces, far more faces than at my first Civic Awards just a year ago, and it's especially exciting to see so many new faces. We're delighted to have you join us to celebrate two visionary civic leaders, Jim Reynolds, founder of Loop Capital, and Hyatt Corporation, led by Mark Hoplamazian. So I want to begin with a few acknowledgments. First, a special thanks to our event co-chairs, Derek Douglas, Suzette McKinney, Dory McWhorter, Jennifer Staines, and Jill Wolowitz, most of whom are in the room today and two of whom you'll hear from a little later in the program. Thank you for your leadership and your generous support of today's event and the Civic Federation. Second, I want to give special thanks to our Vanguard sponsor, the Crown family, and our Trailblazer sponsors, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, GCM Grosvenor and Michael Sachs for their tremendous generosity and belief in the importance of our work. And finally, my thanks to all of you, our supporters, our champions, our friends, and at times, perhaps, our friendly and necessary challengers, for showing up today to support these honorees and the Civic Federation. Thank you for making our work both possible and meaningful. When I stood on this stage a year ago, I was 5 months into this role and actually thought that I had a sense of what it takes to run an organization like the Civic Federation. I was sadly mistaken. What I do know today is that the learning never ends and takes the ceaseless support and thought partnership of our great city's civic leaders. Leaders who are willing to meet today's challenges in the service of improving government in the pursuit of a better tomorrow for all. Since we last gathered in this room, the Civic Federation itself has evolved. We've adopted a new strategic plan that builds on our legacy of excellence while expanding our vision for greater impact. And we've already begun putting that vision into action. While honoring our long tradition of nonpartisan research, we're responding in real time to today's most urgent challenges and engaging more deeply with our nonprofit, government, and civic partners. At a time when both the national and international landscapes are marked by uncertainty and disruption, the need for trusted local research has never been greater. Accurate, accessible, and actionable research is a cornerstone of democracy, and we remain committed to being a steady voice even when the truth is hard to hear, because facts and the understanding of them are a vital component to driving long-term systemic change. Our founder, Jane Addams, understood that lasting change requires collective effort. Celebrations like this are a reminder that we move forward and succeed only when we walk together. I have the immense pleasure of getting to walk alongside an incredibly hardworking, small but mighty team. So I'd like to ask the Civic Federation staff, please stand so that those around you can recognize you and your work. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize past honorees of today's awards who have joined us today. And I'll leave it to each of you to stand or wave, whatever you're most comfortable with, so we know where you are. Bill Brodsky, Richard Price, Jennifer Staines, AT&T, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, Clayco, GCM Grosvenor, Illinois Tool Works, Motorola Solutions, Northern Trust, PNC, Walgreens, Wintrust Financial Corporation, and United. We are so grateful that we are joined by such an outstanding group of civic leaders. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the woman who has been my steadfast partner and advisor since day one at the Civic Federation, our board chair, Jill Wolowitz, who somehow finds the time to help lead the Federation while serving as Executive Vice President at Healthcare Service Corporation. But before Jill joins us on stage, I would like to invite Marilyn Gardner, the President and CEO of Navy Pier, to share special remarks about a very dear friend of the Civic Federation.
Thank you, Joe. It's truly my honor to recognize our dear friend and the dear friend of so many here in this room. As a lifelong champion, as a longtime champion of the Civic Federation, Lori Healy was an extraordinary civic leader whose contributions to the city of Chicago and our region were visionary and enduring. Her leadership left an indelible mark across the public and private sectors. Lori was a dedicated supporter and member of the Civic Federation, lending her expertise to its work. As a trustee, she helped advise on the direction and focus of research. As chair of the advisory committee for the Motorola Solutions Foundation Excellence in Public Service Award, she led a sound process for selecting each year's honoree, a responsibility she did not take lightly. She was so grateful, as many of you know, to have been honored with the Distinguished Award as Commissioner of Planning and Development in 2006. Through her years of dedication to improving the city she adopted as her home, she reshaped our community and, in turn, each of us in profound ways. The changes she championed created lasting improvements that will benefit generations to come. Lori seeded ideas and advanced causes that have ensured that Chicago thrives as the best big city in the world. A true force of nature, Lori saw possibilities where others saw obstacles. Where others saw division, she built bridges, bringing government, labor, business, philanthropy, and community together. She didn't just talk about collaboration, she embodied and inspired it. Lori showed us all what it means to lead with both strength and compassion. It wasn't about being in the spotlight for Lori, it was about illuminating the path for others. We take great comfort knowing that Lori lives in the hearts of those she touched and in the very spirit of the Chicago she so deeply loved and selflessly served. Our thoughts remain with her family, her friends, many of us here today, and all who had the privilege of working with her. I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for Lori. Thank you.
Marilyn, thank you for the remembrance of Lori. That was very, very heartfelt. And Joe, for your kind remarks. Before we move into the main event, I would like to recognize the public officials and dignitaries who are with us today. From the state of Illinois, we have Secretary of State Alexi Julinas. From Illinois State Senate, we have Chris Balkema and Donald DeWitt. From the Illinois House of Representatives, we have Dan Ugasti and Joyce Mason. From Cook County, we have Cook County President of Board of Commissioners, Tony Preckwinkle. From the City of Chicago and sister agencies, we have Brandon Johnson, City Budget Director Annette Guzman, City College's Chancellor Juan Salgado, CPS Chicago, Chief Financial Officer Miroslava Krug, and from the Chicago Board of Education, Jessica Briggs, Teresa Boyle, Angel Gutierrez, Yesenia Lopez, and Carlos Rivas, and from the Cook County Board of Review, George Cardenas. Thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you so much for your service to the City of Chicago, Cook County, and State of Illinois. So what's next is I would like to take a moment to add to Joe's remarks and brag a bit about the work that he and his staff has accomplished this past year. As Joe mentioned, this year has been one of significant change for the Civic Federation. But for those of you outside of the day-to-day, what like you see is an extraordinary level of output. From reports, roadmaps, op-eds, public events, and media appearances, it is as if Joe and the Civic Federation are everywhere all at once. The team dug deep into the fiscal year 2025 Chicago budget process, providing a forward-looking roadmap and elevating and understating the city officials through official decision-making. This work has led to our Research and Policy Director, Annie McGowan, being appointed to serve Mayor Johnson's Chicago Fiscal Sustainability Working Group. As Chicago has transitioned to a newly elected hybrid school board, the Federation was able to provide critical connections to CPS finances and new board members and break down complicated topics for journalists and the public. Most recently, with the state budget process, you likely saw Joe and our partners at the Civic Committee and Better Government Association speaking out of the importance of sensible and transparent pension and transit reform. The Federation also teamed up with a diverse coalition to encourage action on modernizing Illinois' sales tax system. It's truly remarkable what a small group of 9 individuals is able to accomplish when they're supported by committed partners, many of whom are in the room with us today. I share all of this because the work of the Federation is deeply collaborative. It is you, our community, that has joined us in this work, and we are grateful in your efforts with us to move it forward. And of course, none of this would be possible without the dedication and support of our talented board of directors, who have been shepherding the organization through change while ensuring we have the resources, expertise, and oversight at the highest level. If you're a member of the Civic Federation Board of Directors, could you please raise your hand to be recognized? Thank you so much. I'm equally grateful to the support and advice of our broader membership, our trustees, Council of Advocates, young professionals, and other members. If you're a Civic Federation member, please give us a wave. Thank you. A full listing of our members is available on our website, as is our research, our op-eds, our position statements, and other news. And if you're new to the Civic Federation, please grab any of us on the board or on staff, and we'd love to get you more involved. So with that, I'm super excited for lunch and to move on to hear from our honorees. But first up, we have a greeting from Governor J.B. Pritzker of the great state of Illinois, who could not be here today, but very kindly sent in some pre-taped remarks.
Hi, everyone. This is Governor J.B. Pritzker, and I want to begin by thanking the Civic Federation for 130 years of leadership across Illinois' education, government, and business sectors. Your engagement has had an incredible impact, making our state a better place for succeeding generations. Today, it's my distinct honor to join the Civic Federation in recognizing 2 extraordinary leaders whose contributions have had a profoundly positive impact on our state. First, I'm proud to recognize Loop Capital founder and CEO Jim Reynolds as a recipient of this year's Civic Award. Under his leadership, Loop Capital has grown into one of the largest minority-owned investment firms in the nation. Jim is a champion of economic empowerment and is deeply committed to uplifting underserved communities. His dedication to lifting up those who've been left out and left behind and serving the best interests of all our people exemplifies the values we hold dear in Chicago and throughout the state. The second Civic Award recipient is the Hyatt Hotels Corporation and their CEO, Mark Hoplamazian. Mark has led Hyatt's many partnerships with local organizations and connected countless young people with career pathways in the hospitality industry. Hyatt's civic engagement has been an incredible asset to Illinois, and its work has centered innovation, inclusion, and a deep sense of responsibility to our city and our state. Congratulations to both of today's exemplary awardees. They make me proud to be a Chicagoan.
Okay, now it's time for the big show. And by the big show, I don't mean Chicago Tonight on WTTW at 5:30. Thank you for the chuckle. So the annual Civic Awards, I do get paid to talk. They celebrate the exceptional civic contributions of Chicago area leaders and institutions. Each year, the Civic Federation presents the Gage Masol Award for Outstanding Civic Contribution to an individual who embodies the civic commitment and vision of the Federation's first president, Lyman J. Gage, and immediate past president, Lawrence Masol. The Adams Palmer Award for Exemplary Civic Involvement by a Chicago institution is presented in memory of Jane Addams and Bertha Honore Palmer, two of the founders of the Civic Federation. To present this year's Adams Palmer Award, please join me in welcoming Michael Fastnacht, President of the Chicagoland Region and Chief Growth Officer at Clayco, last year's award recipient, President and CEO of World Business Chicago, and earlier led Foot Cone and Belding, where he earned global recognition for his leadership. Please welcome Michael.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Brandis. And I think the reasons why I'm invited is to bring some international flair with my accent. And Joe forced me to definitely post it on LinkedIn to serve my lunch here. But thank you all for joining us today to recognize and celebrate the incredible civic leadership of Hyatt Hotel Corporation, along with President and CEO Marco Blemesian. Hyatt was founded by Jay Pritzker in 1957 with the purchase of his first hotel, the Hyatt House, near the Los Angeles airport. And from the beginning, Hyatt was more than just a family-run business. It was, and remains until today, a business built on the principle of care that must be at the heart of any hospitality business. Care for its customers and care for its staff. So in its almost 70 years, while Hyatt has become an international brand with hotels and properties in 69 countries, that core commitment to people has never wavered. The spirit is outlined in Hyatt's World of Care platform, initiative that reflects the company's values through environmental action, responsible and ethical business practices, in the promotion of opportunity, equity, and well-being for communities and employees alike. If you look at this sentence, it might be more important today than ever before, and we are proud that Hyatt continues this mission. A particular inspiring example of this commitment made as real is Rise High, Hyatt's global commitment to connect an opportunity youth, young people between 16 and 24 who are disconnected from the economy and connecting them to meaningful employment. Hyatt has pledged to hire 10,000 such youth by end of this year alone. To date, more than 400 hotels in 65 countries support Rise High participants, referred to as Rise Highers. But what sets this program apart is not just employs these young people, but actively supports and guides them. Hyatt partners with community-based organizations to help Rise Highers build skills, make connections, and ultimately find long-term career paths. And here in Chicago, Hyatt partners with Skills for Chicagoland's Future to provide direct access to job openings for youth from historically underinvested Chicago communities. Through this partnership, Hyatt and Skills for Chicagoland's Future have helped numerous unemployed or underemployed Chicagoans to find work and create new beginnings. None, truly none of this would be possible without empathetic and visionary leadership. And that brings us to Marco Blemesian, who I'm fortunate to call a friend. Mark has been at the Hyatt's helm since 2006 and has guided Hyatt through a period of remarkable growth while remaining rooted in its founding values, despite all the challenges that this particular industry faced over these 2 decades. Under his leadership, the company has deepened its commitment to inclusive hiring, workforce development, and community partnerships across the globe. Mark's commitment to Hyatt is matched by his commitment and love for our great city of Chicago. He serves as the board chair of Skills for Chicagoland's Future, and let's be honest, we all receive calls from him to get more involved. He has been his biggest champion for many, many years, but he also serves an incredibly important role as the co-chair of the Civics Committee Public Safety Task Force, working to ensure a safer and more equitable future for all Chicagoans. So to better understand the depth and breadth of Hyatt's impact, let's hear directly from some of them who have been impacted, empowered, and inspired by its mission and values.
We all have a responsibility to make where we live and where we work better. And Hyatt is an organization that participates in the community.
Because we're doing things for people, and that's just an extension of myself, because I really care.
If you care for people, if you believe in what we believe in and our purpose, the sky's the limit, really.
Growth is fundamental to success and happiness. You have to say, here's where I think we need to go, and you need to invest in that.
We have to step up to provide opportunities for young people. It's corporations who are willing to invest in our young people are investing in tomorrow.
And all it takes is that little push for the youth to be able to want to strive for more. And that worked on me, because I'm still here.
My dad was in the business of leverage buyouts, and his tennis partner here in Chicago said, hey, I hear there's a motel for sale in Los Angeles by the airport. So Dad goes to LA and he meets with a guy named Hyatt Van Den. Dad wanted to see whether he could make a deal to acquire this motel, and they did. And oh my God, we're now in the hotel business. Our purpose is we care for people so they can be their best. This describes who we are, and it's who we've always been because we're a family business.
At Hyatt, our purpose is our North Star. It is the guideline, the principle, the foundation on which we build strategy, on which we think about the impact that we have on people and all of our stakeholders. And World of Care is very much tethered to our purpose of caring for people so they can be their best. And we think about advancing care through caring for people, caring for the planet, and caring for responsible business. It is really fundamentally the Hyatt story.
I was born and raised here in Chicago, Illinois. Grew up in North Lawndale for the majority of my life and did an internship with Hyatt. After the internship, I still want to do hospitality work. 3 years later, still working here. My HR team, they approached me one day and they said, because of your age, you're within the bracket to qualify to be part of this program called Rise High. It's about getting the youth into hospitality through Hyatt, and who knows, maybe I'll be an owner of a hotel one day.
I was elected alderman in 1991, and at that point, the federal government was making a substantial investment in employment programs for young people, and that investment has dwindled down to almost nothing. Whether you're an elected official or whether you're a business leader in your community or whether you're part of the philanthropic community, we have to step up to provide opportunities for young people. And so I'm really grateful to the Hyatt Corporation for investing in our youth.
Mark is one of the most gifted leaders I've ever met. He generates ideas. I thought he could be super great as the CEO of Hyatt, and he thought that was a terrible idea. I then went and talked to Hyatt's board, and they also thought it was a terrible idea. So I went and reported to Mark that the two of you are perfectly aligned, so would he just try it for 6 months?
Mark's an incredibly passionate and caring human being, and I think that's reflected in the way he leads. Participates in a lot of things civically. He's one of the civic leaders I admire the most. You know, we met in an elevator, believe it or not, and maybe that tells you something about Mark. But we really started a conversation about workforce in an elevator. That built a 10-year relationship of doing good across our community, which I'm really proud of.
Mark and I have been friends for over 20 years. Mark's friendship means the world to me. He will stop and ask how's things going and ask me if there's something I can help you with. But he has an open mind and he listens. Mark, sometimes he would like to come in and just check and see how everything's going. He'll try to sneak in. He has yet to sneak by me yet. He's tried numerous times.
I'm gratified on behalf of Hyatt. Congratulations to Mark Hoplamazian and the entire Hyatt family for winning this amazing award from the Civic Federation. Thank you so much.
I want to congratulate the Hyatt Corporation for this honor. Well deserved.
Congratulations to the Hyatt family for winning this award. It is beyond well deserved.
Congrats to Hyatt. It's a huge accomplishment and not surprising.
Congratulations, my Hyatt family. And Mark, you're awesome and keep doing the great work.
For the Civic Federation to recognize how we think and what we've done is just a wonderful thing. Congratulations to the entire Hyatt family. This is a recognition of you guys.
It's now my pleasure to present the 2025 Adams Palmer Award for Exemplary Civic Involvement to Hyatt Hotels Corporation for the decade-long commitment to bridging opportunity gaps and creating culture of care. Accepting this honor on behalf of the organization is President and CEO, my good friend, Mark Hoplamazian. Please join me on the stage.
Congratulations again to Mark and, of course, the whole Hyatt family. We're going to hear more from Mark in just a little bit. Before we get to the Gage Masol Award, we're going to have a quick word from Mayor Brandon Johnson.
Hello to everyone gathered for the Civic Federation's annual Civic Awards. It is truly my privilege to recognize two exemplary leaders who have positively impacted our city and all of our communities. The founder and CEO of Loop Capital, Jim Reynolds, and Hyatt Hotels President and CEO, Mark Hoplamazian. Jim Reynolds is a trailblazer in the financial industry, growing Loop Capital into one of the largest minority-owned investment firms in the country. He champions economic empowerment in our underserved communities, and his philanthropic efforts focus on education, economic development, and creating opportunities for the next generation. And Mark Hoplamazian is a leader in global hospitality and greatly committed to civic partnership right here at home. Under his leadership, Hyatt has partnered with organizations like Skills for Chicagoland's Future, helping to connect young people to career pathways. And they launched Rise High to expand access to youth jobs in the hospitality industry. I want to thank Jim and Mark for embodying the best of Chicago's values and exemplifying what civic leadership truly looks like. I'm grateful that in Chicago we share a sense of responsibility to uplift the people who make our city great. Congratulations to Jim and Mark on these awards. You inspire us all to strive for excellence and to serve others with integrity and purpose. Thank you.
All right, thank you again, Mayor. So, presenting this year's Gage Masol Award is Jennifer Staines, who was honored last year alongside her sisters, Heather and Robin. Jennifer is president and CEO of Financial Investments Corporation and serves in leadership roles across numerous nonprofit organizations, including the Staines Family Foundation, Navy Pier, Rush Health Equity Advisory Council, World Business Chicago, and, of course, the Civic Federation. Please join me in welcoming Jennifer Staines to the stage.
Thank you, Brandis. Always hard to follow her, and love having her here a second year. And I just have to say it's a pleasure to be here and a real honor to celebrate the remarkable contributions of Jim Reynolds today. I think we can all agree that anybody willing to lead Mayor Johnson's working group to try to solve our $1 billion shortfall falls into the hero category. So thank you, Jim, for taking that on. That is big. And for that and many other reasons we all know here in the room today, Jim is the definition of a true Chicago leader. Born and raised in Englewood, his dedication to public service is rooted in his deep and abiding connection to his community. From the beginning of his career to the flying success he has today, Jim has always remained committed to the city that raised him, and he's dedicated to empowering the next generation of Chicagoans. As the founder, chairman, and CEO of Loop Capital, Jim has successfully built one of the most large privately held institutions in the country, and I have learned that it, in fact, is the largest black-owned investment banking firm in the world, and it's really right here in Chicago, and that's exciting. And every day he works not just to provide the firm's motto, the principle, client service beyond expectations, but he works to uplift all Chicagoans. He has long recognized that equity is that it requires investment not only in institutions, but in people, and particularly young people of color, who deserve access to opportunity, mentorship, and support. Jim has made that investment time and time again. He has partnered with community-based organizations, educational institutions, and civic initiatives that ensure Chicago's youth have the tools they need, not just to succeed, but to actually become leaders themselves. His service extends across many of Chicago's vital civic organizations that we know of today. He served as the executive chair of Chicago Community Trust, whereas he helped shape their strategic vision to help change the racial and economic wealth gap and eliminate that here in our city. He's also, among other commitments of his volunteer time and activities, the Executive Emeritus Chair at Intersect Illinois. He's the Vice Chair of Chicago Urban League and is the Executive Leadership at the Advisory Board at Hope Chicago as well. More than that, he's a trusted mentor. He's worked closely with leaders across sectors to help young people realize their potential and become forces for change in their own communities. Jim's philanthropic philosophy is both simple and powerful. He uses his platform to open doors for others who need it. His work demonstrates the belief that opportunity should not be dictated by a zip code, and that Chicago's future really depends on its ability to invest in the promise of its young people. So to better understand Jim's deep commitment to Chicago, we're going to now hear from a few people whose lives he has impacted and about the great work he has done.
Jim is someone that cares about the community more than anybody I've come across.
Jim's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion is core to who he is, and he runs his business like that.
To those who are given much, much is expected. And I think Jim lives by that.
He's clearly willing to invest in young people, has always made his commitment to Englewood, where he grew up.
It's extraordinary to see how much of his time and his energy Jim is able to devote to civic and volunteer activities, and he does them with his whole heart and soul.
I've had the pleasure of knowing Jim at least 20 years in different roles and capacities. When I first came up to Chicago as a young executive, everybody knew the name Jim Reynolds. I had read that Jim went to school for radio and TV repair, was thinking about it. I thought it was for broadcast, and I knew why he changed careers then. No, in all seriousness, Jim's commitment to Englewood, he still shows up with that commitment. He leads with what are we doing for under-resourced communities. And I'm proud to call him a friend.
We're very privileged to be involved in the businesses we're involved in. We're very fortunate to be partners in the financial services industry, and giving back to community is our obligation. It's something that I think Jim does day in and day out, and in that way I look up to Jim profoundly, in fact.
He's kind of larger than life, right? Willing to stand up for what he believes. African American leaders at whatever sphere you're in are sometimes tempted to bite your tongue, and that's not who he is, thank God, because we need people who are going to be honest and open about the challenges that we face as a community.
And if you know Jim's personal biography, you kind of know Jim Reynolds. Jim Reynolds, the banker. Jim Reynolds, the civic leader. Jim Reynolds, the father. Jim Reynolds, the husband. Growing up in Englewood, he went this way. He could have easily gone that way, and it would have led to a different Jim Reynolds.
Jim has focused his civic work and his business on figuring out ways to invest in young people, regardless of their background, and particularly people who face challenges. Chicago is really known for business leaders who take their role as leaders who can use their skills, use their networks to make this a better place for all of us, and Jim exemplifies it.
Jim exemplifies in the theme of this year, investing in tomorrow, because that's what he does every day. I enjoy spending time with Jim. I once was with him and I commented on his shoe game, and he talked about it being his daughter's brand and so forth. And I said, well, now I understand, because I knew you didn't do that by yourself. So I'm glad you have help. Jim, congratulations on winning the 2025 Gage Masal Civic Federation Award. So proud of you, man. So happy for you and your family, because I know you didn't do it by yourself.
Absolutely love to congratulate you, Jim, on a fantastic accomplishment. Well done.
I'm very grateful to the Civic Federation for its contribution to informing our residents about important issues of the day, and that they would honor Jim is quite appropriate, and I'm grateful.
Everybody would agree that the vote was fixed, and in great Chicago tradition, Jim won.
Would you like to say congratulations?
No, I don't want to say congratulations, because then he'll just replay it to me. Jim knows how proud all of us are of his accomplishment.
Jim, congratulations for this honor. It is so well deserved. It is such a joy to see you in action in your civic leadership work, and it's really wonderful that it's being recognized again.
All right, now, for his unwavering dedication to uplifting Chicago's youth and for his lifelong commitment to giving back to the city that raised him, and Mayor Johnson, for our collective belief that he will be successful in chairing your work group and solving our budget issues, it is my pleasure to present the 2025 Gage Masal Award for Outstanding Civic Contribution by all Chicagoans to Jim Reynolds. Come on up.
Thank you, Jennifer, and congrats again to Mark and Jim. As you can see, they're both going to join me on stage right now for a fireside chat. Thank you. I think, how many microphones do we have? We have 3? We've got 3. We can count. Jim, you've got some real interesting friends in Calvin Butler and Ambassador Emanuel. Is Calvin Butler here? Does he have any other secrets? And if this doesn't work out, then we might have an opening for you at WTTW for some TV repair.
Oh, yeah. Well, I did study that, so I'm ready. All right, I'm really ready.
So I think we've gotten a good sense from each of you and from the folks who have worked with you over the years and love you in the videos that we just saw. But I want to dig a little bit deeper into some of that work. And Mark, I want to start with you with Rise High and how that came into being and more.
Sure. First of all, super grateful for this honor. Jill, thank you, and Joe, for all your incredible work, and the entire board. I have so many examples of different family groups. I've got my Civic Committee family over there, my Hyatt family right here, and I have a mini family here with the mayor and the president, given all the work that we're doing together on the Public Safety Task Force. So I feel surrounded by families, so thank you. So, you know, I think it became so clear to me, I've been in, you know, this business and in my job for a very long time. And the more I traveled around the world, the more I saw that there was a common theme, which is in most urban centers around the world, there's a massive disparity in opportunity, in income levels, and in wealth, family wealth levels, household wealth levels. And there are disadvantaged neighborhoods everywhere. It's very stark in Chicago. And so I've lived in Chicago for 38 years, but I feel like I've been here really for generations in my own experience of it. And I love the city passionately. It wasn't really until my eyes got opened. I was doing a lot of work with skills and before that in workforce in Inglewood, actually. And I drove block to block in Inglewood, visited Austin to visit one of Artie Duncan's cred sites there. So I've covered the mayor's hometown and Jim's hometown. And there's no question about the fact that there's a massive disparity here, right here at home. And I felt like, you know, this is something that we can actually do something about. So globally, we have really pushed really hard to find young people. And I will say in certain countries, especially Brazil, young women, because their fate in coming out of very disadvantaged areas like favelas or slums is not good in any way, shape, or form, including horrible things like sex trafficking and so forth. So I felt like we could play a really important role in getting people into the workforce because the hospitality industry is magic. You don't need skills to start. However, you have lots of things that you can learn over time and develop a career path towards. And I saw this firsthand when I was working with skills. The leadership of Kara is here as well. They do incredible work here in similar vein. And so I really felt that this was something that we, as a company within the hospitality industry and then the industry at large could do that would really put a dent in the world, like really change the trajectory of so many people, tens of thousands in our case, I think industry-wide hundreds of thousands, eventually millions of people. And that's where it came from.
So Jim, while Rise High focuses on a fairly specific age group, right? 16 to 24-year-old opportunity youth. So those who are typically from an underserved community, but also disengaged, right? Not working, not in school. One of your foci, an area of focus for you, Jim, is early learning and early education. Tell me why that came to be a focus for you.
First of all, let me start by saying, Joe and the Civic Federation, thank you so much for this incredibly esteemed award. What's interesting is I knew Lawrence pretty well. We actually went to South Africa together under George Ryan. And working with him, we went to Pretoria, Cape Town, and a few other places. I was struck by his hard work and dedication and effort and loyalty to the governor. When he came back, he started doing this, which is what I do, more finance-oriented things and looking at the fiscal state of the state. And I always admired him. So I really appreciate this award. It's particularly special, so thank you. Also, the room, I'm amazed. You know, you live long enough, you get old enough, and you stay in one place, you get to know a lot of people. You know, I've never worked any place other than Chicago in my whole life, which is a long life. And many of the folks here and folks on the video I've gone through a lot of iterations in the last 30 or 40 years with. So thank you. You know, I look at it in two ways, Brandis. One is certainly early education. You know, I got together with Diana Rauner at Start Early. I mix them up, Start Early, Early Start, you get me going. And we had a chance to talk as I started to think about things, and she has now Selena working with her, which is amazing. I've been a fan of hers for a long time. But then on the other end of the spectrum, I work with teens that shoot each other and folks that have been incarcerated and coming out. And so Cara Collective, Kathleen and Tara are two folks that I work closely with. I don't know how you can detach one from the other. It's one, and I was with Cred, Arnie Duncan and I were talking one night, and Arnie says, Jim, we focus on the shooters in Cred, which is good. You need to focus on the shooters because you have to get them off the streets. But if you just focus on the shooters, and I've been through several iterations of folks in corporate rooms and others that said, you know, Jim, we should just lock those guys up. Just lock them up and we solve the problem. But I said, well, okay, let's say that's right. Because, you know, we tried that once when we locked up the leaders, the gang leaders a few decades ago. It didn't work that well. I think they found out the gang leaders are typically the smartest people in the gang. And so when you arrest the gang leaders, there's no head. But I said, you arrest them, you arrest those folks, and then they're gone, and there's a new crop waiting to take the spot that they just left. And by the way, they come out worse when they come out. You have to attack it from the source. The common denominator when you look at violence, and I spend my time, looking at black kids that shoot black kids. And that's where most of the violence is. And you have to think about what is it that goes into a 16 or 17-year-old's mind that would make them think it's a good idea to shoot anybody? Like, what's going on there? And I got involved early. I went to Rahm Emanuel in his first term and said, you know, Mr. Mayor, I know folks see me as a downtown investment banker and all that stuff, but I'm from Inglewood, and I need to go back there. And as I did more of that, and you learn more of that, you learn the seeds are sown very early, that when a kid is 16 or 17 or 18 and pulls out a gun and shoots somebody, you could trace it back. And we talk a lot about that third grade. I know, you've got a short lunch. We're going to go quick, so I'll try to get this out. But so much happens when a young person is 5, 6, 7, 8. That third grade test in particular, when they're 8 years old. And when you trace back a kid, just take a kid that shot somebody that's 16 or 17, and you go back and see where they were at 8. The parallels are incredible in terms of where they were at 8. At 8 years old, in third grade, they were reading at a first grade level. By the time they were 10 in fifth grade, they were reading at a 10th grade, a third grade level. By the time they were 7th and 8th grade, they may have made it to a 5th grade level. And then after that, they drop out and it's done. And so if you get that person that shot somebody at 16 or 17, catch them when they're 3, and Diana and I spent some time talking about and they get to that third grade test at 8, and they're reading in the third grade by the time they're in the third grade, and they're reading at the 5th grade by the time they're in the 5th grade, and the 7th and 8th and 9th grade, they're likely to stay in school, and shooting someone isn't necessarily a smart option for them.
And some of what you talk about, I have covered both of these things, right? And we're going to come back. I've covered education, and as of late, I've covered prisons, and I know that that's another piece of your focus as well that we're going to come back to. But Mark, you and I spoke last week or so, and you talk a little bit about the ripple effect when someone is given an opportunity, when someone takes an opportunity, in that 16 to 24-year-old window. What is some of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I describe the work that we do in this domain, and this is everybody within Hyatt. So we have 220,000 colleagues around the world, and this is the most prominent program that everyone knows that we're committed to. So it's company-wide, and I think anybody who's been engaged with a young person who has been given an opportunity and they seize that opportunity, and so we're data-driven people because we're in business. The retention rates for these people are extremely high, much higher than regular hires. Their promotion rates are actually higher. Their commitment and loyalty is higher, and they express it because they are so grateful to have been given that opportunity, and they pay it forward more than others. So you find people who are actively going out and looking for other ways to bring their friends through to find jobs at Hyatt or in hospitality in general. Once you experience that up close and personal, it is the most humbling and moving experience you can possibly imagine. Famously, we have this breakfast at Skills every year, and a young gentleman who still lives in West Garfield Park, and that's a critical point here. A lot of people that find jobs. So quick statistics. In Chicago, we hire a lot of people every year. A third of them come from the South and West sides. So we are really leaning in hard, not just opportunity youth, but generally speaking. And this young man, Marquise Pitts is his name, went to work for Rush. Rush has hired hundreds and hundreds of people from the West Side and some from the South Side as well. And he started off in environmental services, then went into transportation. He then got tapped to go into this program. It's called REACH. It's the Rush Educational Career Hub or something like that. And it's about STEM education. So this is a young man who's creating a career for himself. He got up and said, I am staying in West Garfield Park. The problem is a lot of people who get these jobs, they leave the community. And having driven block by block through Englewood, you see the result of that. It's a massive depopulation. I think greater Englewood has lost a third of its population over the last decade. That's staggering. So to find young people who are that committed, staying in one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the city because he knows that it's his neighborhood and he wants to make a difference in it, I mean, that is a giant in my mind. You're a hero for figuring out the city's finances, as we just heard from Jen Steens.
We haven't done it yet, so
yeah.
give me a high five.
My money's on you.
Call me when you do.
Yeah. She'll be happy to interview you about that. And Marquise is a giant and a hero of his community. I mean,
well, what comes along with that? So he stays, right?
Yeah.
What comes along with him setting that example? But what happens to the neighborhood and the community when he does that?
Well, the first immediate impact he has is on his own immediate family. So he's helping his parents, his siblings, and nephews, nieces, and so forth. The second thing that happens is that he said it. He wants to have his own house and have his own family and be in that neighborhood and have a life there, supporting local businesses and being a part of what will, if you multiply that thousands of times over, a growing base of people where they're generating more income, more wealth, reinvesting in the community. And so there is that ripple effect, that butterfly effect, where you see the ripple of the impact through the businesses, through the community, through the individuals. So that's really, that's both the theory and the practice in my experience.
So Jim, let's talk about the other end of the spectrum, right? Like, we talk about early education and we talk about prison, and I'll give you all an example, right? I was in touch with a young man who had been incarcerated. It is a very long story why we were in touch. Set that aside. So he gets released within the last few months, and I reach out to him because I want to interview him about this particular story. We agree to a time and a date. I try and confirm it the day before. I drive the hour from one part of Chicago to the other part of Chicago to meet him. Text him, hey, where you at? He's about an hour or two away because he is at work, but it would have been good to know that before I trucked across town to come and interview him. And I mean, it kind of dawned on me, like if you didn't have your act fully together before you went to prison, you're not going to have it together when you get out. What did you learn when you went to visit a prison?
So I'm not as hard on these guys as you, obviously.
I am not. No. It is, yeah. and to be clear, I don't fault him necessarily. I don't fault him, and I am in touch with quite a many people in prison.
Well, coming from Englewood, I knew a lot of guys in prison.
Prison didn't fix him right up.
And it wasn't something that eluded my family either. So I would say I recently got an award a few years ago, and some folks here were there, the Lincoln Leadership Prize. And it's an amazing award, here in Illinois for an outstanding Illinoisan in a place that I'm committed to. But I gave a speech there, and I warned everybody before my speech. I told everybody, fill up your wine glass, because this is going to be long. And I didn't disappoint them either. I talked about three things. Preschool was one. Economic development on the South and West Side was another. And prison reform was the last one. And what I said was, it's hard for me to fully understand how you take someone and lock them up, let's say when they're 18, 19, 20, keep them for 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, 10 years, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They do not ever do anything that's outside of your gaze, and they don't learn anything. I just couldn't fathom that you would have someone that needs skills so badly, and you have them, and you control them, and they come out no better than when they went in. So in my...
See what I mean?
Yeah. So, well, not really. No,
I'm
but
not
anyway,
saying...
I'm not letting you totally off the hook on that.
I'm not saying he is back to committing crimes,
no,
but I am saying he did not learn some skills while he was there.
But on that thing, we'll get back to this point later.
Okay.
But on that thing, on my speech, I said, I got to go inside of a maximum, a medium security prison. I want to go. My good friend, Glenn Brooks of Chicago Police Department, wonderful guy to travel with, because Glenn can leave his car anywhere. And you just go in. And,
Director Brooks also finds this conversation hilarious about prison.
oh, yeah. So Glenn took me in, and I said when I was going in, I was chair of the board of Chicago Community Trust. My board members were there. They said, Jim, we want to come too. I said, really? You want to go inside? They said, Jim, we're coming. So the entire board pretty much came. We all went to Pontiac. And we got there early. They held us outside for a little bit. We didn't know why. Glenn came down and told us later that an inmate had committed suicide, which is more common than many of us think. It just doesn't get reported. But we made it in, and I said, I want to see the jail cells. I want to see the commissary. I want to see the classrooms. I want to see where they recreate. I want to see everything, because I just got to know. And they showed me everything. They took us all. We saw where they slept. We saw the classrooms that they learned in. We saw where they ate. And we talked to the leadership about why they weren't doing things with these. We went to a male prison with these men. And it was no answer that made any sense to any of us. They just didn't do it. I mean, they just didn't do it. And I happen to be chair of the board of Intersect Illinois, and I interact with a lot of corporations, and we have companies relocated in Illinois that come and say, we need labor so badly. We'll take high school dropouts, we'll take ex-offenders, we'll take anybody that's willing to come to our manufacturing facility, distribution facility, that want to learn how to work with their hands. And I started talking to the wardens and leadership of the prisons and asked them, were they aware of that? That companies in their general area, John Deere, Harvester, all of these companies needed labor, and you were in touch with these people? And they said, no. I said, do you want to be in touch with these people, these CEOs that they need these men? And they said there was no capacity, there was no vehicle to do so. So that'll be another thing that you'll hear, certainly me talking about a lot, and I have a chance to talk to the governor and the state and reps to talk about why it is. They don't teach these folks more that when they have them in there, and how do you expect them to be when they come out? I mean, to your point, how can you in prison learn how to time manage? Somebody wakes you up in the morning, they tell you how much time you got in the yard, they tell you what time to eat, they tell you what time to go to bed, they tell you, so I don't know how you could manage. Oh, I got to meet Brandis for an hour and I got to get going. I mean, I'm sorry. But.
Or tell her we need to reschedule.
But that's how I got interested in that, because in order to do well at one end, you have to do well in the beginning end.
If I could just add one thing to this conversation,
Please.
that is, this is exactly what CRED and other organizations, including a lot of the cities and counties' efforts, providing so-called wraparound services are about. This is really recognizing that this is not trivial. These are people who, in the CRED cohort that I joined for an entire day in Austin, one of the members, there's 12 of them, one of them was late. When I heard the story, so the tradition is if you get there late, first of all, it's pretty harsh if you get there late, but they have to explain what happened. And I was in shock of how much that young man had to do that day and what he was faced with to get there. And he was maybe 15 minutes late, not an hour and a half late. So these wraparound services you've got all kinds of things to consider: childcare, elderly care, getting young siblings out the door, people who were arrested overnight, a shooting on the block, you name it, you've got it. And so this is critical. If we're going to employ people from these neighborhoods and actually give them a chance, we need a more holistic approach, which is why community violence intervention and prevention and a concerted effort is so important. And that's why I know the mayor and the Cook County president and the governor, because they're all stepping up to the table, recognizing that this is a holistic thing that we need to do.
And to that point, because everyone has a role to play, right? Whether it is something like what Hyatt is doing with Rise High, or somehow leveraging whatever your organization, company, whatever it is that you do, how can you apply that, right? So, Jim, I'm going to come back to you for this because you mentioned like Caterpillar and Deere and those other companies. How do you use your position and your influence to sort of lean on your fellow titans of business and industry to say, hey, there's a thing you could do here to make us all better?
Yeah, being a friend of Jim's is not necessarily a free ride in terms of floating above the issues. I'm known to call on you and share some of these things because, where I am now, like many of us, we don't really need things for ourselves. You want to be, and I fully understand and don't take for granted coming out of Inglewood doing what I'm doing now. Look, my dream, and Ram and I talk about it, joke about it, I came out really desiring to be a television repairman. That's what I was going to be, which is fortunate I didn't do that because there aren't any anymore. Nobody fixes TVs. They just throw them away. But I do make it a point, and what I've learned is people respond to you when they really feel you're genuine and they really think you care. And they know you're tackling things that aren't popular necessarily to champion. But it's necessary to do that. And so I just love Chicago. I just love the people in Chicago because, we don't run away from things. I travel to all cities because I'm in the bond market. I travel all cities. There's no city like Chicago where the business community, the philanthropic community, the civic community, and all the communities come together to help solve problems. Even, Mark, what we're doing in the commercial club, civic community, civic committee. We're talking about things that normally wouldn't impact folks at that level, talking about what's going on in Inglewood and Austin and places like that. So I'm really, really flattered by it. And the mayor, every time he gets up and has, he's got a lot of issues to deal with, but this is one that he continues to champion more than anybody that's ever occupied that office. And that is what's happening constantly on the south and west sides of Chicago. And that's important. And, Tony and I have been friends for 40 some odd years. She's never left that position, that place of fighting for others. She could have been gone and retired a long time ago. And she stays in it because that voice and her voice is unique and needed to address these issues.
A couple minutes left. Mark, how do you measure the success of your efforts specific to what Rise High does and supporting the young people you work with.
Yeah, I would say career path, making sure that they stay in the workforce. Not everyone that we hire through Rise High or just generally speaking from underserved communities stays at Hyatt. But we do track what's going on, and we have, we as a company don't, but some of our partners have access to public databases where you can understand that they may have left your employee, but they went on to take an even better job. I see that as tremendous success, whether they stay with us or don't stay with us, as long as they're on path to earn more money, to generate a living for themselves and be safe, and contribute to the community. So ultimately, I think it's about the collective action. To Jim's point, there is no city like Chicago anywhere that I've ever experienced in the globe. The level, you can find plenty of cities, New York is a great example, of the business community writing a bunch of checks. You can't find another city in which the business community rolls up their sleeves and dives in, head first and goes after the toughest topics and stays at it. So the level of engagement is incredible. I think, and right now I just had this moment at the Civic Committee meeting 2 days ago. I said, look, this is a membership organization and it's untoward to require members to do things, but I'm here to tell you that you need to step up now, because we are actually behind in the hiring efforts as part of the Public Safety Task Force. We've made tremendous progress in the CV, in the Community Violence Intervention area. We've done a lot with the police department and the state's attorney's office. We're doing more and more in place-based investment in the neighborhoods, but the hiring is what I am really focused on. So I'm adopting. I didn't know that it was no cheap date to be a friend of Jim's. I'm starting to develop that reputation too, because I looked out into the crowd and there was a very serious, everyone's face was like, whoa, okay, this is a different Mark that we've seen before. So I've got this, my teeth are sunk into this issue. We need to move the needle and we need to do it now, because it's yes, we need education reform. Yes, we need tremendously more mental health support on the streets. We need to get community violence intervention going better and better. We need many things. But first and foremost, we got to get people in the jobs, because we're giving them an alternative to joining a gang, to putting a gun in their hand. And the faster we can do that, the more direct impact we can have quickly. And that relates directly to reducing violent crime. So to me, as far as I'm concerned, I will not be happy until every company that I can think of is either, first, mandatorily reporting the data that you've got on who you're hiring from the South and West Side. And if that means you're learning for the first time how many people what proportion, in our case, it's over a third of all of our hires in Chicago are coming from the South and West Side. If it's causing you to learn what it is, that's really good, because awareness and data and facts are critical to know where you start. Second, you should commit to at least 10% of your hiring in Chicago coming from the South and West Side, at least that. Third, if you are in a situation in which you're restricted because for example, airlines, TSA requirements don't allow people who are formerly incarcerated to serve on the ramp. I get it. But it doesn't mean that you can't employ such people in the rest of your company. And even if you can't, it doesn't mean you can't support the organizations that are helping to get those people jobs. So that's the call to action. That's what's needed. And I'm going to now adopt the Jim Reynolds approach of being a pain in the ass until we get this done.
Jim Reynolds, last word. What is your call to action?
No, I think Mark embodies it so much. I chuckle during the videos. My brother was a doorman. And that guy, when we were growing up, he had more money than anybody I knew. This guy, I really should think about being a doorman. Forget this investment banking.
He's
All
here.
right. And, but no, I think we say it a lot, and I think just the nature of Chicagoans, folks in this room, the Civic Federation, we care a lot and we dig in and we want to change things for the better. You could sit around and spectate and complain about a lot of things. Or you could dig in and see what you can do to help change those things. I learned a long time ago when a small group of us got together with this guy with a funny name named Barack Obama, just a few of us talking about this dream of running for this and running for that, and then what happened? And a few people can make substantial changes in your environment. And in Chicago right now, I think we have everything in place. We've got the right leaders in place. We've got the right civic committees. We've got the right attitudes with all of the attributes we have here to make changes in our city to make it better. So that's the way I would end it. And I'll just say one last thing. I hope you're not mad at me. I was just joking.
I'm not. Yes, I know, I'm terrible. Thank you again, and congrats to our recipients today, Mark Hoplamese and Jim Reynolds. Thank you so much. Would you help me thank them, please? I'm going to step over here. Before we close, I've got one more thing for you all. Don't go. The giveaway, because some of you, oh, you're just standing ovation. I appreciate that as well. The giveaway, because some of you dropped your business cards into the basket, and I'd like to tell you who won. Oh, I get to pull, okay. Must be present to win. Peter Cunningham of Cunningham Creative. Where is he? Is he still here? So I can just keep his business card and then, there he is, hey. All right, well, hang on to it. Okay, thank you. Also, fun fact, if you're leaving, first person who grabs the centerpiece gets to keep it. You're welcome. Then, if you would also like to learn more about Jim Reynolds and Hyatt's work, you can visit civicfed.org/2025 Civic Awards. Photos and video from today's event will also be there. One more thing, everybody, just 1 second, bear with me. A round of thank yous. That's amazing, good job. Thank you to Hoopla Communications for their guidance and support producing today's event, Mimi Productions for their video production and run of show today, and of course the entire Civic Federation staff for their work behind the scenes. To the honorees and the co-chairs, we ask that you please come to the stage for group photos. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay cool out there, everybody. Thank you.